Okay, so today we're digging into something really old, but also surprisingly current. It's this Roman tactic, divide et impera, divide and conquer.
Right.
Caesar was famous for it, but what's kind of wild is seeing how it's stuck around, how it keeps, evolving in global power plays.
Exactly.
So our deep dive today, it's all about tracking that strategy from colonial times right up to now and figuring out what it actually means for you.
Yeah, and it's not just like historical trivia, is it? The basic idea of breaking up power, playing divisions off against each other for your own gain, that's fundamental. It just looks different now.
How so?
Well, it's shifted. Less direct rule, maybe, and more subtle stuff. Think proxy wars, economic pressure. But the key thing is, those lines drawn in the sand way back when, they're still causing sparks today. They fuel conflict.
Let's unpack that blueprint then, the imperial control playbook.
Yeah.
Colonial powers were masters at deliberately creating these volatile splits. Take British India. The administrators, they sort of worked off this totally wrong idea that you had these neat, separate boxes, classes, religions.
A fundamental misunderstanding, or maybe deliberate.
Right, and they'd use overt favoritism. Yeah, like putting Sikhs in the military, Brahmins in admin jobs. Naturally, that breeds resentment.
Of course.
And then there's the 1905 partition of Bengal that specifically aimed to create, and I'm quoting here, a permanent breach of sentiment. A lasting divide.
And it worked.
And maybe the most crucial bit, they brought in elections based purely on religious identity. That really cemented a separate Muslim political force.
And the terrible lesson there, well, it leads straight to the 1947 partition of India. I mean, the scale is staggering.
Yeah.
You're talking 12 to 20 million people forced from their homes, up to 2 million killed. And that Radcliffe line, drawn so hastily,
Terrible.
It left this enduring atmosphere of hostility and suspicion. Look at Kashmir today. That conflict isn't some, ancient hatred. It's a direct result of those engineered differences. Predictable, almost.
That pattern in India is just so clear. Now let's switch focus, look at Belgium and Rwanda. Similar tactics, maybe, but... Well, the outcome was horrifying in its own way.
Different context, same principles.
Before the Belgians arrived, the lines between Hutu and Tutsi were much more fluid, social distinctions mostly.
Yeah, not the rigid categories we think of now.
But the Belgians, they imposed this rigid racial caste system. They latched onto this completely discredited Hamitic hypothesis, this idea that Tutsis were somehow a superior race from elsewhere.
Right, painting them as foreign rulers, essentially.
And here's the really chilling part. 1926, they mandate these identity cards. Your ethnicity, Hutu or Tutsi, fixed at birth, no changing it.
And that single administrative act, it created this incredibly deep grievance, a structural inequality baked in.
So what happened then?
Well, things shifted. In the mid-50s, the Belgians changed tack. They started backing the Hutu majority instead, a strategic pivot. And that directly helped trigger the 1959 Hutu peasant revolt. It set everything in motion, ultimately leading towards the 1994 genocide.
It's just tragic.
Utterly. And again, it wasn't some inexplicable eruption of ancient tribal hatred. It was the long-term fight out from a deliberately engineered power imbalance.
So we've seen divide and conquer in direct colonial rule. But the world changed. Empires formally ended. How did the strategy itself adapt? It didn't just disappear, right?
No, it just evolved. It became more indirect. Think about proxy wars. The definition is pretty simple. A conflict instigated by a major power which does not itself become involved, directly anyway.
Okay.
During the Cold War, with nuclear annihilation hanging over everyone, proxy conflicts were seen as a safer, maybe more acceptable way for the US and Soviet Union to compete. They used surrogates.
Got it. Like Afghanistan.
Exactly. The U.S. backing Islamic guerrillas against the Soviets, which it's argued really crippled the Soviet Union. Or the Angolan Civil War, another messy, long proxy fight.
And today?
Well, look at the Yemeni Civil War. It's a devastating example. You have regional powers, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iran, all backing different factions, leveraging Yemen's internal splits.
For their own ends, presumably.
Absolutely. Securing borders, controlling ports, extending their influence. While the cost, the human cost, is entirely borne by the Yemeni people. It makes peace incredibly difficult.
So the fight moves from direct control to these indirect wars. But there's another layer, isn't there? When the weapons aren't guns, but balance sheets.
Yeah.
Debt.
That takes us to neocolonialism. It's subtler still. Economic control.
Right. The idea is control of less developed countries by developed countries through indirect means. So you get political independence on paper.
But your economy, your policies, still heavily influenced, if not outright controlled, from outside.
How does that actually work on the ground?
John Perkins's book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, lays it out pretty starkly. He describes these economic hitmen, or EHMs.
Okay.
Their job is basically to persuade leaders in strategically important developing countries to take on huge loans. Massive infrastructure projects, often with inflated costs.
Loans they probably can't repay.
That's the point. Saddle the country with debt it can't possibly manage. Then, the lenders often, corporations from the lending country, get lucrative contracts. You secure resources, like oil. And the debtor nation, it becomes politically subservient. It has to follow the lender's foreign policy objectives.
Wow. And Perkins mentioned something even darker, doesn't he? The jackals.
He does. Assassins. Sent in if the leaders refuse to play ball, if they resist the economic pressure.
So that connects this sort of clean facade of economic deals right back to brute force.
Exactly. It shows how insidious this evolved form of divide and conquer can be, blurring the lines between corporate interests and state power. It's about control, ultimately.
So given all this history, this evolution, how do we even begin to think about solutions? About lasting peace?
Well, it demands confronting some deep issues, things like structural white dominance, not just overt racism, but systems that keep historical power imbalances in place, and the hierarchy of knowledge, this idea that Western ways of thinking, Western solutions, were always seen as superior, sidelining local knowledge and peace efforts. Think about those arbitrary colonial borders, particularly in Africa and the Middle East.
Right, lines drawn on a map with no regard for the people living there.
Exactly. Creating a shaky foundation for nations, just breeding grounds for conflict. Conventional conflict resolution often fails because it doesn't address these roots.
So real resolution needs more than more than symbolic gestures. It needs a fundamental shift.
Precisely. It requires genuine historical acknowledgement, and there's this idea gaining traction. Decolonizing peace building.
What does that mean practically?
It means prioritizing local agency, empowering the communities actually affected by conflict to lead, using indigenous or local methods of managing conflict, letting them design the initiatives that will actually transform things and tackle those deep structural injustices.
Okay, so wrapping this up, looking back at our deep dive, there seems to be this clear, consistent thread, doesn't there?
Yeah.
A causal link between how external powers acted historically and the instability we see right now.
Absolutely.
Conflicts in places like India, Pakistan, Rwanda. These modern proxy wars, neocolonial debt traps, they aren't random events. They feel like direct results of this evolving divide and rule playbook.
They are, and that leaves us, and leaves you, the listener, with a pretty challenging thought. If we actually want lasting peace, it requires a massive global reckoning.
A reckoning with this history.
Yes. Dismantling those structures of dominance, truly embracing decolonial approaches, just ignoring this past, pretending we can move on, that's basically guaranteeing these legacies keep fueling conflict and collapse today. So the question becomes, knowing this, what new questions does it raise for you when you look at today's headlines?